Today I'll be showing you how to change batteries in ITI, GE, and Interlogix door window transmitters. We'll start with an SX5, which is an older style. This was the first style that they came out with in this size. To remove the cover, each sensor has a base that protrudes out here. What you do is you squeeze in right there and you'll loosen the cover right there. Then it pulls off the pin at the other end. The most common mistake is people will use a screwdriver to loosen this pin up right here, and they'll break that bar off, and then the cover won't sit in place anymore. So it's very important, if you're using a tool to get this apart, you're doing it wrong. So once you have the cover off, set it aside. Inside you'll notice the battery, and if you have a sensor that has 5 pins on it right there, it's very important that you don't take out the old battery until you have the new one for immediate replacement. If this sensor loses all its power, the programming is erased. And they haven't made these sensors for over 20 years. They also haven't made the programmers that program these for over 20 years, so they're rare. But if you take the battery out and it loses programming, or if it already is dead, chances are you're going to need to have a technician to come out to reprogram it. My recommendation is, if you have a sensor this old, consider fully upgrading your system. But if the if the battery in here is still good and the capacitor still has power in it, if you take out the battery and immediately replace it, you should be fine. The way I pull out the battery is, because they sit in really tight, is I put a screwdriver right here at the edge, hold down the back bucket with my thumb as I lift up, and the battery will pop out. If you don't know how you took it out, which direction it was in when you took it out, chances are you're going to put it in backwards. If you put a new battery in backwards and this has a charge, it's going to blow the battery and the battery won't work anymore. You go, oops, I got it in backwards, you'll turn it around and it still doesn't work. On this system, not only will you kill the battery, but you'll also kill the programming. So if you look at the 4 corners of where the battery goes, one of them has a plus symbol in it. I don't know if you can see that, but this one has a little plus symbol in it. I guarantee yours has the same thing. If you look at your battery, they'll have a little date stamp on it. The first 2 digits is what you're looking for. This one was made in 2010. I would recommend, when you check your new batteries, make sure that they're the same year of the current year or the previous year. This is 2014 right now. I probably won't get batteries dated 2014 till at least halfway through the year, probably August. So 2013 batteries are good right now. Go ahead and put the negative side in first, snap it in, making sure that the date is showing the right way so you know that you have the new battery in. Plus and minus symbol is on the battery, so you can see those. Also, be very careful when you're pulling the battery in and out. I'm going to take this all the way off to show you. This battery bucket is soldered in with 2 solder joints. That's the only thing holding this together. If you pull this up too hard, oftentimes that solder joint will break right there. So go ahead and put that back in. Put those 2 pins in place right there and there. Snap it into place right there. Also, you have to get the cover back on, because if the cover is not on, nothing is holding down this little tamper switch. This pin inside here presses down on that tamper switch and it'll always say it's open until you've replaced the cover. So you put the slot in on this side and squeeze it down until it snaps in place on the other side. The next one is a learn mode sensor. Opens the same way. They can come in white and brown, all 3 can. You just squeeze in right there again. You release that side, lift it off the pin on the other side. Now, they've made at least 3 styles of these. This one right here has a battery in with the positive down here. There's another style that looks just like this with the positives up here. And then there's a third style that has the battery sitting all the way down here with the positive down here. Whichever one you get, make sure you're looking for that little positive symbol embedded into one of the corners. Again, don't put the battery in backwards. That'll blow the programming. On both these sensors, I do recommend the Saft brand battery, Saft LS14250. It's a 3.6 volt lithium battery. They'll last longer than most other brands. Again, make sure you have the positive and negative going the right way. Otherwise, if this capacitor still has power, you could blow the battery completely. Snap in the negative side, push it in. You got the positive and negative there, and you got the date showing out. Cover pin back in on one side, snap it closed on the other. The most recent version is slightly different in size. If you take the cover off and match it up against the cover from one of these other sensors, see how it's a little bit taller, just slightly taller than the other one. It's because it has a larger battery. If you try to put the old sensor cover on the new sensor, it won't go closed. Also, if you put the new sensor cover on an old sensor, it doesn't have the pin and it wouldn't hold the tamper switch closed. But they all come off and on the same way. This one has a much easier battery to replace, and these are available at most any store because they're used in digital cameras. The date on them, this one says 2021. That's the shelf life date. It doesn't give you the manufactured date, but usually the shelf life that I've seen has been about 9 years after the manufacture date. So this one's a year or two old. It has a clearly marked positive and negative symbol right down in there. There's the plus symbol. There's the negative symbol right down in there. Battery snaps right in. These will not lose their programming. One thing you have to be careful of is don't lose this tamper spring though. The cover holds this closed, and if the cover's not on, that spring's not closed, it's always going to say that the sensor is tampered and the system won't work properly. So you want to make sure you don't lose this. What it does is it sits in a groove right there on the pin. I don't know if you can see that, but right there's a little groove in the pin. So you can try pushing the spring down till it pops in place, or you can use a small flat tip and just slide it down till it snaps in place, and that way you won't lose that spring. You also want to make sure that you don't lose this. Where this is mounted on these pins determines how it's looking for contacts. So there's a contact right here. You can put a magnet next to it. This pin being here uses that contact. There's another reed switch right here. There's a magnet next to that. Use those two pins. There's a place for a remote switch terminals to be mounted right here. If you're using these terminals, you also have to use a resistor with this sensor. And if you do use those terminals, you put the jumper like that so it's not connecting any of the pins. Again, I'll snap this in place onto the back bracket. I'll put the pin in the top, snap the bottom together, and that's how you change batteries on SX5, second, third, and fourth generation Learn mode, and the newest generation Learn mode door window sensors. Thanks for watching.